So without a spiritual element, I would say a leader is definitely handicapped. Whether he is political, economic or otherwise, it doesn't matter what kind of leadership. If you want something truly unique and new to happen, something that is an ultimate solution to human well-being, then one has to perceive life, not as people. If you begin to experience this as just life, not as a personality, only then you see what is truly needed for the well-being of life. Leader is someone who takes charge of the destiny of a large mass of people. Either knowingly or unknowingly, he assumes this responsibility. Unless he is capable of organizing and directing situations to the desired goals, that is not a leader. But that will only happen if you have some mastery over yourself. It's extremely important how much mastery you have of your own inner nature will leave you that much free from the outside situation. Right now, most people exist in this situation. Their way of being is hugely enslaved to the external situation. This moment, if outside situation is beautiful, you're also beautiful. If outside situation goes haywire, you also go off. So when your existence, when your way of being is so hugely impacted by the outside, we need to understand what is the nature of the situations in the world. It doesn't matter who you are, how powerful you are. Nobody in this world has 100% control over his outside situations. Neither your business, nor your family, nor anything around you happens 100% the way you want it. Is that so? Even if you're just two people in the family, it still doesn't happen your way, isn't it? Nobody happens your way in this world, please see. Nobody happens 100% the way you want them. Not your friends, not your family, not your husband, not your wife, not even your dog. He does his own things. But this one person must happen your way. If this one doesn't happen your way, you're a lost case. If you truly want to be a leader, first and foremost thing is, this human being, this piece of life must happen 100% the way you want him to be. If this one did happen the way you want him to be, how would you keep him? Would you keep him in utmost pleasantness or unpleasantness? Would you know anything called tension or anger or any other nonsense? The reason why people are going through all these things is not a question of morality, not a question of values and ethics. It is simply because the fundamental faculties within them, their own body, their own mind, their own emotions and their own energies does not take instructions from them. They're happening in reaction to external situations. Is there such a possibility that one can be in such a way that whatever the outside situation, inside is free from that? Yes. How far is it? How difficult is it? It is neither far nor difficult. It is just that it's in a different direction. Because your whole experience of life is happening through sense perception, and sense perception is essentially outward bound, and this is interiority, which is not in the realm of the senses, so it looks so far away. Some time ago this happened. Someone came looking for Isha Yoga Center near Coimbatore. They came to a nearby village and asked the local boy, how far is Isha Yoga Center? And the boy said, it is 24,996 miles. That far? He said, yes, the way you're going. If you turn around, it's 4 miles. Because you're looking in the wrong direction. It looks so far away and so impossible. If you turn around, it is just a simple reality. Every human being is capable of this. When it comes to outside realities, no two human beings are equally capable. Each one of us is uniquely capable. But when it comes to inner realities, all of us are equally capable. It has not happened only because we have not paid attention to that dimension of life. So when we say leadership, today in the world, whatever kind of leader you are, whether you're a business leader or a political leader or whatever kind you are, it demands extensive travel, handling complex situations, Above all, handling diverse people from diverse backgrounds and cultures. When a human being has to continuously handle complex situations every day of his life, if he is not spiritually established, he will naturally get pulled down. This is a common word today wherever you go. People are talking about burnouts and, the end game. When they're 35, they have ulcers and heart attacks and all these things. This is simply because, not because the work is difficult, simply because we do not know how to manage these systems. Managing these systems from outside will not help, because the system was created from within. It can be managed from within. If only, if you had access to that which is the source of this body. Obviously the body is being created from within, not from outside. If you had access to that source, if you had a repair job to do, would you go to a local mechanic or would you go to the manufacturer? Definitely to the manufacturer. The problem is we have lost access. Now spirituality means gaining access to that dimension within you, which is the very source of who you are right now. This is not about looking up, looking down, looking around. This is about looking inward. Now, right now we are trying to handle human well-being and well-being of the nations and societies in a very ad hoc way. Even today, leadership in the world, even people who are leading nations, are looking for guidance by looking into the teacup or looking at the planets and stars. When you create well-being by chance, you will naturally live in anxiety. No, by looking into the teacup or the arrangement of the tea leaves, you get confidence. By looking at the alignment of the planet, you get confidence. You get courage. By believing that God is with you, you get courage. Courage, confidence, faith. Let's look at this. You want to cross a busy highway where traffic is moving at a certain speed. If you cross it with confidence, we will have to pick you up. Courage, we have to scrape you. Faith, you need clarity of vision, clarity of perception. Only then you cross it properly. Because this clarity of vision is missing, we are looking at the tea leaves and the planets. Major decisions on this planet are still being made by looking at the other planets. We are not concerned about this one. We are interested where the others are going. This is like, can I tell you a story? I seek your permission because the moment I say once upon a time, a lot of people think it's bedtime. It's an old habit. Once upon a time, on a certain day, a bull and a pheasant were grazing upon the field. The bull was grazing on the grass and the pheasant was picking ticks off the bull, partnership. There was a huge tree at the edge of the field. The pheasant looked up at the tree very nostalgically and said, "Oh, alas, there was a time when I could fly to the topmost branch of the tree. Now I cannot even fly to the first branch of the tree. I do not have the strength in my wing." The bull very nonchalantly said, "That's no problem. Just eat a little bit of my dung every day. Within a fortnight, you will reach the topmost branch of the tree." The pheasant said, "Come on, what kind of nonsense is that?" The bull said, "Really, try and see, the whole humanity is on it." Very hesitantly, the pheasant started pecking at the dung. Lo, on the very first day, it reached the first branch of the tree. Within a fortnight, it did reach the topmost branch of the tree. It went and sat on top of the tree, just beginning to enjoy the scenery. The old farmer who was rocking on his rocking chair saw a fat old pheasant sitting on top of the tree, pulled out his shotgun and shot the bird off the tree. The moral of the story is, many times even bullshit can get you to the top, but it never lets you stay there. Isn't this the story of human well-being? Isn't this the very story of human well-being? Because we are handling it by chance. We are not taking charge of who we are. We are not taking charge of the basic source of creation within ourselves. We have lost access to that. This culture, the very basis of this culture, is steeped in these technologies for inner well-being. If we do not use this, we will once again go to the same thing. We may fix the outside. India is a nation where a lot of the outside needs to be fixed, there is no doubt about it. But let's look at the other examples in the world, where people have fixed the outside substantially, but still there is no well-being. The journey from poverty to prosperity is a hard journey. Whether it's for an individual, a society, or a nation, it is a very hard journey. After making that journey, people still do not know well-being. Please see this. Seeking well-being, they're doing all kinds of weird things. So it's extremely important at this juncture, where we are on a threshold of economic prosperity, where we have the capability right now for the first time in many generations, where we can move a large mass of people from one level of living to another. 50 years ago, even if they had dreamed of it, they couldn't have done it. For the first time, we have such an opportunity. I really fear that the way we are handling many things, we may goof it, or we may postpone it to the next generation rather than making it happen now. In the next 10 years, what kind of leadership will decide what we will do with this? A leadership which is bereft of any spiritual content, bereft of perception beyond the limitations of logical intellect and the physicality, cannot manage a situation like this with absolute clarity. It will manage by chance. By chance, anything may happen. Even quantum mechanics says, if you try to go through this wall 1 billion times, there is a chance that you may actually pass through the wall. But before that, you may have a cracked skull. By chance, anything can happen. But if we are doing things by chance, we are a tragedy, or we are a potential tragedy, because any time we can fall. So spiritual process is not about going to the temple, mosque, or church. This is about enhancing your perception about this piece of life, knowing this piece of life from its origin to its ultimate. What you perceive is all you know. Rest is imagination. If we want to move from being a psychological being to an existential being, because what you do in your mind is not reality. You can do whatever you want. Right now you can imagine that you're in heaven, but you will fall in no time. What you do with life is the most important thing. What you do, or your ability to access the source of life, will empower you to handle the process of life in an absolutely clear way, without dithering about it, without groping in the dark. One can handle their life. This culture, which is steeped in these technologies for inner well-being, is something that we must make use of. No other land, no other culture has seen as much work towards human consciousness as this culture has. The best acknowledgement for this came from outside the country. Mark Twain, one of the greatest intellects of the previous century, when he came to India and traveled the breadth and length of the country, when he was leaving, he said, anything that can ever be done, either by man or God, has been done in this land. These technologies, I invite all of you to make use of this so that we and the future generations here can know the exuberance of human existence. Thank you very much.
May I now invite Dana Zohar. Dana Zohar was born and educated in the United States, studied physics and philosophy at MIT, and did her postgraduate work in philosophy, religion, and psychology at Harvard University. In February 2000, she published SQ, Spiritual Intelligence, the Ultimate Intelligence. Her latest book is Spiritual Capital, Wealth We Can Live By, published in April 2004. Dana Zohar.
Namaste. I'm very pleased to be with you this afternoon. When I was invited to be here, I was phoned by Mohini, and she said, please be controversial. In India, we love controversy. I said, in England, we only like consensus. And she said, but we have tried to reach consensus in India and we give up. We decide to celebrate the controversy. So I will be a little bit controversial. My lecture will be very different from the one you have just heard, in part because I don't accept the division between the spiritual and the physical, and much of my words will be about how to use the dynamic interaction between the spiritual and the physical to bring a better kind of leadership to modern India. In the last century, we broke the sound barrier. The challenge of this century is to break the thought barrier. It is thought that makes the world, thought that traps us in a cage, thought that makes us fall so far below our potential as human beings. We need to change the way we think. There are things about Indian spirituality that my co-speaker did not mention that go with this division of the spiritual and the physical. Things that bother me. When I was in Calcutta about 10 years ago, I was out walking on the streets, and I saw an infant about 7 months old, naked, dirty, alone, crawling on the streets. No mother in sight, no father in sight, no home in sight. This little bundle of humanity, this little bundle of life, was simply struggling to be. It disturbed me very deeply. I was here to attend a seminar on management by values at the Indian Institute of Management in Calcutta. And as a guest speaker for this seminar, I knew the professor very well, and I said to him, after seeing this child on the street, how can you live with this? How can you talk about holiness and spirituality and the sacred when this child is living on the streets like this? And he said, oh, it is his fault. You know, in India we believe that people are the subjects of their past lives, of their karma. This child was a wicked man in his past life, so he does not deserve your pity. Perhaps if he does well in this life, he will have a better life next time. That kind of fatalism is largely responsible for some of the problems that confront this country. The Economist magazine said this week that there are two huge problems facing India's modernity and Indian leadership. The first of these is poverty. My co-speaker said that we live in the most comfortable generation ever. Well, that is true of 20% of Indians. It is not true of the remaining 80%. 80% of Indians live in this most extreme poverty, just as they have done for generations. The other problem, the Economist said, for modern India is the corruption to be found in your civil service. corruption which undermines the rule of law, which takes money out of the pockets of the people, which robs the state's infrastructure of wealth, which generally hinders respect for each other and respect for higher values. I really want to address my remarks to these two problems and to the problem of that child on the streets of Calcutta and how they come together and what they have to do with the kind of leadership that India needs today. We in the West have been learning from India for the past 50 years, and it's done us a great deal of good. We've learned your spiritual texts. We've had your swamis come to lecture to us. We've learned that Western materialism is not everything, and we've valued from this very much. I think, though, that some of us in the West, the new thinkers in the West, the new thinking which has emerged in the past 50 years, has something to say to India and to the Indian spiritual traditions which separate the physical and the spiritual and which accept that we are the victims of fate, the victims of our karma, the victims of circumstance, that we must give ourselves up to destiny. One of the new thinkers in the West is the psychologist Carl Jung, Freud's protege. Jung is very famous for saying that if things go wrong in the world, it is because something is wrong with me. Something is wrong with the individual. I am not the passive witness of my age. I am not its victim. I am not the victim of history or circumstances. I, like all other individuals, make the age in which I live. I create history. I am responsible. This Jungian call to responsibility, to give up victimhood, to give up fatalism, was a new thing in the West as well. We had our own fatalism in the West. The inexorable truths of our written spiritual texts, the inexorable finality of God's creation in Christianity, the inexorable laws of physics as described by Newton's physics. We are just the victim of blind laws and forces tossed about in this universe with no chance for free will. Jung and the physicists who inspired him, mainly quantum physicists, spoke against this kind of fatalism. They spoke about something that is not necessarily spirituality, but what I prefer to call spiritual intelligence. And I want to make that distinction for you clear. My co-speaker made a very good distinction between spirituality and religion. Religion is about belief. Spirituality is about an open questioning, an open seeking, a longing, a pain in the heart, a pain in the guts, a wanting of something more. It's not believing that it is this, that, or the other. Spiritual intelligence, however, is more primary still than either spirituality or religion. Spiritual intelligence is the intelligence with which we deal with the meaning of things, the meaning of our lives, the meaning of our actions. The intelligence with which we have, work with, and can bring into this world our deepest values and our broadest visions. It's the intelligence with which we take responsibility for the world, the intelligence with which we have an abiding sense of purpose. Spiritual intelligence is the intelligence that makes me ask, why do I have a life? Why am I in this world? What am I here to do? What must I achieve before I die? It is spiritual intelligence that leadership needs more than spirituality or religion. It is spiritual intelligence, which is also our moral intelligence, that will lead us to ask why that child was crawling naked and dirty and alone on the streets of Calcutta, while 20% of India eats very well. It is spiritual intelligence that makes us ask, why do I put out my hand and take the bribe? What am I doing to my neighbors, to my community, to my state, to India, to my fellow people when I take that bribe. Spiritual intelligence stops us in our tracks and makes us ask about the meaning of what we are doing. It is only by asking such questions, going so deeply into our souls, deeply into our spirits, deeply into our capacity for asking deep questions, that we can address the painful issues that perhaps some of modern India's successful leaders would like to shunt aside. Most of my lectures today are to business people. I happen to believe that business people, even more than politicians, bear a responsibility for the world in which we live today. Business leadership, more than any other leadership, needs to use its sense of meaning, its sense of purpose, its sense of value, and its sense of responsibility, its spiritual intelligence. Let me define 12 principles by which spiritual intelligence is encapsulated. The first is self-awareness. Who am I? No, I am not my ego self. No, I am not just my body. No, I am not just my persona. I am something of the sacred combined with this body I have been given as the gift to get through this life. I am someone empowered by my spirit and my body to act in this world. I am someone called to make my life meaningful. The second principle is spontaneity. Acting in the moment with the judgment of the moment, the knowledge of the moment, the perception of the moment. Not acting with all the baggage of religion and tradition and history and parental teaching and school teaching and cultural assumptions. Not acting with prejudice, acting in the moment. This namaste that you say to each other, it means I greet the God within you. When you say namaste to each other, you are saying, I don't see your skin. I don't see your caste. I don't see your religion. I see the sacred within you, and I greet that in this moment. The same with problems. When you greet problems with spontaneity, you don't say, oh, this is how we always solved them in the past, so that will work now. When you greet a problem with spontaneity, you say, here is this problem, fresh and new. It's a challenge for my intellect now, for my spirit now, for my emotions now. And I will give it all the creativity I have in this moment. Spiritual intelligence means to be vision and value-led, to ache for the unborn, to ache for the uncreated, to ache for the not yet said, to ache for the not yet done, and to ache for it within my own being. What have I not yet said? What have I not yet done? What have I not yet accomplished? What more can I do? What are my deepest values? What do I live for, and what would I die for? And do I bring those values into my work? Do I bring them into my capitalist practices? Do I think of the children on the streets of Calcutta when I tuck away my millions in the bank? Do I think about India and all her people, 100% of her people, not 20% of her people, when I make my money and when I decide how to spend it? Another principle of spiritual intelligence is holism. This comes essentially from quantum physics. Quantum physics teaches us that there is no such thing as separation in this world. I am not my brother's keeper. I am my brother. There is no distance between you and me. There is no separation. If you could see this room with a quantum microscope, you wouldn't see 500 separate bodies sitting on 500 separate chairs. You would see an energy field, all of us overlapped and combined, each of us inside the boundaries of the other. Quantum physics teaches us that our bodies do not have boundaries. That's the old Newtonian view of science. We are not particles. We are waves and particles. We overlap, we combine, we co-define each other. Companies in the West have said to me, we don't know what's outside the window and we don't care. Well, holism makes that totally impossible. We need to know what's outside the window because we influence what's outside the window, and what's outside the window influences us. Indeed, it defines us. We cannot afford to say the other. There are no others. There is only us. Reframing is another one, which relates to my saying we must break the thought barrier. We all live locked in a cage. This cage is called our paradigm. It is our unquestioned values, our unquestioned assumptions, the things we take for granted, whether about physical reality, emotional reality, or spiritual reality. We live locked in a cage of assumptions. There is very little fresh, new, radical thinking in the business world today, or in the world of politics, or indeed on the streets. People like to think what others think. They like to value what others value. They like to follow the fads, the fashions, whether these are fashions of thought or fashions of clothing. To reframe is to step back from your assumptions and values, to question them, to say, why do I believe this? Could I be wrong? Are my values the deepest values? Are they my own values? Where did I get them? And reassess those. Reframing is to live at the edge of the paradigm, where I can see the cage I was in, and that there's another reality out there that doesn't live in a cage. The physicist Michio Kaku wrote a bit in his book, I can't think of the title of the book now, but one of his books he wrote about a fishbowl, comparing us to the fish who live in the fishbowl. And the fish are all swimming around in this bowl, and they take for granted that that is the world. They don't even know what it's made of. This is just the world. This is reality. But then one day, as fish sometimes do, one of the fish jumps out of the bowl, and he looks down, and he says, my God, I've been living in a small bowl, and that bowl is full of water. And it's only one piece of the world. There's all this out here. And he flops back into his fishbowl, and he tries to tell his fellow fish, did you know that the world is bigger than we thought it was? Did you know we live in a little bowl and it's full of water? And the other fish reacted like we human beings react when a new thinker does come along. They said, are you crazy? We don't feel comfortable with new thought. We don't feel comfortable with getting out of our fish bowls. But our fish bowl is getting very crowded and very hot and very complicated and very messy. And if we don't get our noses out of the fish bowl soon, we're all going to die in it. Al Gore will be talking about that tomorrow night. The next principle of spiritual intelligence is the importance of questions. Constant questions, deep questions. Why am I doing it this way? Why don't I do it that way? Why do we make this product rather than that product? Why do we invest here rather than there? What is my life about? What is my purpose? Questions in quantum mechanics make reality. The questions I ask give me the answers that I get. Ask a different question, I get a different reality. In quantum physics, we are not victims of our experience or victims of circumstance. We are the co-creators of experience. We literally make the world happen. As Jung said, each of us makes his own history. Answers are a finite game. When we think we know the answers, we play within the rules, on the board, and within the boundaries. We're not going to get anywhere radically new doing that. Games are fun, but you get bored with them in the end. When we ask deep questions, because questions are infinite, we play an infinite game. When we are questioning, we're playing with the boundaries. with the board, with the rules, winning it as we go along, creating as we go along, making it up as we go along. Scary? Yes, but that's the opportunity. The systems that complexity theory talks today, living systems, creative systems, systems that have order sleeping within them, lie at the edge of instability. Creativity happens at the edge of instability, where we are questioning, where we're out of our comfort zone, where we're uncertain. It's only when we walk those paths with our deep questions that we can become creative leaders who make the world, rather than just playing on the board we've been given. The positive use of adversity is another of the principles of spiritual intelligence. Making good out of what seems bad. Winning something out of losing something. Gaining from our mistakes, learning from them. Because of being wiser, because of the troubles and suffering that we endure. Not giving in to fate. Never saying, this just happened to me. This is my karma. But this happened to me. What can I make of it? What can I do with it? How can it make me stronger? The philosopher Nietzsche said, that which does not kill me makes me stronger. Thank God for adversity. Thank God for mistakes. Thank God for suffering and setbacks. They make us stronger. They make us wiser. They make us better able to create something new. The celebration of diversity is another. I know that India prides herself on celebrating diversity. That's what Mohini's comment about being controversial meant. But how deeply does India take her diversity? Does it include those who are supposed to be untouchable? Does it include those of other religious traditions? Does it include those who say unpopular things? The celebration of diversity is one of the greatest ways to lead a spiritual life, certainly a spiritually intelligent life. The person who is like me, who says what I say, who believes what I believe, has nothing to teach me. All he or she can do is ratify my own prejudices, make me feel comfortable about myself. The man or woman who disagrees with me, who takes me into my discomfort zone, who makes me feel uncertain, who makes me walk at the edge, that man or woman is helping me literally to rewire my brain, giving me new neural connections in my brain with which I can deal with a further reality. Diversity is the stuff of life. Biological systems thrive on it, and so do we. To be field independent is another quality. That means to stand against the crowd, not to be a man or woman who follows the passions, who follows the fads, who thinks what others think. The person who's willing to stand up and be unpopular if necessary, to stand outside the group and say, no, you're wrong, and I'll fight for this.